We got a new hero today. Her name is Ashiya Doman. Now, if you're checking in, you're probably wondering, what does she do? Is she any good? And is she worth pulling? Ashiya. So what kind of unit is she? She's a counter tank specialist. She's best used against teams with high defense and high damage reduction. And who usually has high defense and high damage reduction? Tank units like Gawain, Colomine, Chasukabe. Those are usually tanks. They usually have high defense, high block rating, high damage reduction, and high HP. So Ashiya's kit is pretty much designed to take down these tanks. So let's get right into it. Alright, let's look at her skill. So this skill will attack a single enemy doing 300% damage based on her attack. And based on the enemy she's attacking, she gains 1 stack of Grudge. But this Grudge stack has a multiplier. For every 2% of damage reduction the target has, Ashiya will gain 1% of damage up. But check this out. When you upgrade her skill to Awaken, the skill now does 360% damage instead of 300%. And she'll gain 1 Grudge stack per 1% of damage reduction the enemy has. So if the enemy has 50% damage reduction, Ashiya is going to get 50% damage up. Now let's check out her passive skill. This is pretty much a no exit sign for the enemy. Just for showing up, she gets 3 benefits. She gets a 20% increase to her pierce rate, which I'm assuming is AP, armor piercing. A 20% increase to her damage reduction. And she gains 1 stack of death reversal curse. So when an enemy hero dies and tries to leave the field, there's a chance that she'll be turned into a corpse instead. Now this chance has a multiplier. Whatever Ashiya's Grudge stack is, times that by 2. And that's the chance the enemy hero will turn into a corpse. So if Ashiya has 50% Grudge stacks from her skill, that means there's a 100% chance the enemy hero will turn into a corpse. When the enemy hero turns into a corpse, it consumes 1 death reversal curse. And what happens is that hero will take up your enemy's slot for 1 turn. It can't act and it can't be targeted. Pretty much changing a 6 versus 6 to a 5 versus 6. Making it more annoying for your enemy. And this only lasts for 1 round. And Ashiya replenishes these death reversal curse stacks for every 3 times that she uses her skill. But when you upgrade this passive skill to Awaken, the pierce rate and damage reduction are increased by 30% instead of 20%. And death reversal curse is replenished for every 2 skills instead of 3. And lastly, she takes 50% less damage from Black Blood Corrosion. And now her final ultimate attack. This attack will attack all enemies, dealing 200% damage based on her attack. But the real kicker is that she applies 1 stack of Dark Servant to a random enemy. So when she does her ultimate, she gives Dark Servant to 1 random enemy. This will reduce the target's defense by 35%. And any damage that Ashiya takes, 15% of it will be directed to this hero. And on the next turn she does her ultimate again, Dark Servant won't be applied to another hero. Instead, it'll go back to that same hero and increase the duration by 2 again. But y'all, check this out. If you get Ashiya to level 7, you know how the Dark Servant loses 35% defense? Well, at star 7, it reduces the defense by 80%. And instead of 15% shared damage, it'll now be 35% shared damage. So her final ultimate attack is really good and much more crazier if you get her to star level 7. This makes Ashiya a passive killer. If an enemy hero hits Ashiya, well, up to 35% will go to the Dark Servant. UR evolutions. So when you get her, she's already at UR level 2. But let's look at UR level 1. Pretty much the longer she fights, the tankier she gets. Every time she casts a skill, she steals 10% of the target's max HP, and then she adds it to her own. And then at the end of each round, she heals for 10% of her now much larger max HP. So this makes her base stats deceptive. She might start with an average HP, but after 2 turns, she turns into a HP monster. UR level 2. I like to call this the stop hitting yourself level. She gets a flat 30% boost to her damage and control resistance. And remember the Dark Servant stack from her ultimate attack? If that specific hero tries to attack Ashiya, they have a 50% chance to get stunned. And not only do they get stunned, but they take additional damage equal to 15% of Ashiya's max HP. Now, at UR level 3, this is where she gets her second life. When Ashiya takes fatal damage, she doesn't die. She enters a ghost mode where She's invincible and can't be targeted for 1 round. At the start of the next turn, she revives with 50% HP and 1000 Fury, giving her an instant ultimate attack. Ashiya also gets an additional passive skill. Every time an enemy dies or even tries to cheat death, I'm talking revivals, HP locks, or immortality, Ashiya will attack all enemies, dealing additional damage equal to 40% of her max HP. This attack also reduces all enemy damage reduction by 20% and control resistance by 10% for 1 round. This can only trigger up to 2 times per battle. EX Evolution, level 1. I want to call this the anti-assassin update. The level 1 EX Evolution is where Ashiya stops being a glass cannon and starts being a tank mage. That's almost impossible to one-shot. She gains 50% crit resistance and 100% crit damage resistance. She basically becomes immune to crits. Even if they do crit, the extra damage is completely negated, and so she's built to survive the first round. When Ashiya takes fatal damage, Dark Servant takes the damage in her place. Ashiya then restores HP equal to 30% of Dark Servant's max HP, and this triggers up to 2 times per battle. Grudge Burst gets an additional effect. For each enemy hero, there is a 50% chance to inflict stun and corpse poison. Corpse poison reduces healing received by 50%. So EX level 1 turns Ashiya into a survival nightmare. She gets massive crit resistance, but the real star is the human shield mechanic. Twice per battle, she can redirect a killing blow back onto the enemies she's linked to via Dark Servant. Combine that with a team-wide stun on her Grudge Burst, and you have a hero that punishes the enemy for attacking her and punishing them trying to die. Alright, and lastly, level 2 EX Evolution. For every 2000 Fury she gains, even past her cap, she gets a Fury Soul stack. This upgrades her regular ultimate into Mega Ultimate. So at EX2, Ashiya doesn't just stop when her energy bar is full. She keeps charging up Fury Souls. When she drops her Mega Ultimate, it consumes those souls to deal a massive 280% attack to the entire team. It's harder, faster, and much more punishing. This unlocks the double voodoo. Usually her ultimate will apply Dark Servant, but now she'll additionally apply Dark Bond to 1 random enemy. This is the game changer. Instead of just 1 voodoo doll, she now links 2 different random enemies. Dark Servant shreds 80% defense and shares 35% of the damage. Dark Bond also shreds 80% defense, but shares a massive 50% of damage Doman takes. With 2 enemies linked, Ashiya is sharing 85% of the damage she takes back to the enemy team. So Ashiya takes damage, but she also distributes 85% of that damage back to the enemy. 35% going to the Dark Servant and 50% going to the Dark Bond hero. This ultimate attack also drains 100 Fury from any enemy who's cursed by her links. So the Dark Servant and the Dark Bond will lose 100 Fury from this attack. If Ashiya finally dies and leaves the battle, she triggers a massive explosion based on 40% of her max HP. So when you finally take her down, she gets the last laugh and hits them with Yami Curse, which shuts off healing and cuts their damage reduction by 50%. If you're looking for the ultimate control mage that thrives on being attacked, this is it. She isn't just a mage, she's a voodoo tank that turns the enemy's strength against them. She hard counters teams that rely on revives, death immunity, and high burst assassins. She does most of her work just by existing, between reflecting damage, shredding 80% defense, and stunning enemies when they try to revive. She creates a lose-lose situation for your opponent. She's one of the few units that stays relevant regardless of how tanky the enemy gets. Ashiya is pretty much the unit you play with when you're tired of losing the whales. She helps level the battlefield even though if your opponent has high BP numbers. If you could get her to star level 7, she'll dramatically help take down tanks. She only needs URX tickets, but you need a lot of them. But if you're already close to finishing Gawain, then it's probably a better idea to just finish her off. So if you're planning to get Ashiya, probably gonna be hard to build her at first. So I'd recommend putting her in team 2. So she'll be a substitute, probably in the back row because you want her to take some damage, but not all the damage. So I hope this video helped you. Thanks for dropping by. See you on the next one.